Hi, welcome to the Diablo Podcast. This is Flux, and we are online at diablopodcast.com. My guests today are Wolfpack.
Hello.
And the Eliminator.
How you guys doing?
And this is a interesting sort of hybrid format of the podcast. We are talking about a Torchlight 2 interview I conducted with Travis Baldree, the lead developer of the game. And both of these guys had a chance to listen to the rough edit of that podcast with its awesome background sound effects. You enjoyed those, right?
Yes, the jet engine was flying strongly.
Delightful.
Yeah. Happily, I've been able to fix most of that with Audacity, some post-editing tools. And we're doing kind of a director's commentary. We're talking about Torchlight and some of the things that Travis says compared to Diablo III and other RPGs. And that's going to be edited in around big chunks of the Travis interview. So you'll hear 7 or 8 minutes of him, and then we will talk about some of the stuff that he said. Skill points and stat points, other such things. Anything else you guys want to throw in, feel free. And we're going to start off with a little bit of Torchlight background. One of you guys played Torchlight and liked it, and one of you didn't. Who would like to speak on that experience first?
Well, I played Torchlight, the first one, and I enjoyed it. I beat it once, and I got about halfway through on a second playthrough. But then I just sort of lost interest because the whole single player and gameplay got a little too repetitive for my tastes. But yeah, it was very fun while it held my attention, for sure.
And Eliminator had a little bit different reaction, I believe.
Yes, I started off and I was excited for it, being the pedigree and stuff like that. And then when I got, I don't know, maybe about halfway through the game, I was finding myself completely uninterested in the quality of the skills and the diversity. And I kind of never finished it. I maybe got to, I don't know, probably about an hour from the end, I think.
I wasn't a big Torchlight 1 fan myself, actually. I mean, I played it, and kind of like you guys said, I wanted it to be good, and I wanted the pedigree to work, and I certainly supported kind of the independent development studio kind of thing. But I wasn't all that satisfied with it. It seemed like it wasn't really polished, and it wasn't perfectioned, and I had some issues with how the skills worked.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't awful or anything. I mean, it wasn't like it was, an incomplete game. I just thought it could have been a lot better.
And I think the monsters, too, didn't really lend too much to wanting to stick around. They were very uninteresting. They were just there for you to kill. They didn't really have much of a personality.
Those are things that I brought up in the interview with Travis, which you guys have heard, and he talks about those in Torchlight 2, and we're going to comment on that very shortly. But it sounds to me, just generally speaking, that Torchlight 2 it really feels like Torchlight 1 if they'd had another year to work on it. It's just much bigger, it's much better, it's much more polished. I don't think I've been having trouble not making the comparison of D1 to D2, where, D1 was just one little town and the little dungeons below it, and then Diablo 2 was a whole world with multiple acts and lots of different variety and more polishing time. D1 was a much better game than Torchlight 1, I think.
Oh,
well,
yeah.
A lot of people also think that D1 was better than D2, too.
I've played a ton of both. I've actually played a lot more Diablo 1 than Diablo 2 in recent years. And it's good, but those people are on crack.
Yeah, I have to agree with that.
You think it's them just rose-colored glasses and don't really fully remember everything from the first game?
I mean, lots of D1. I think people remember the atmosphere and kind of the theme, and it was very dark and gothic and brooding and all that stuff. And there are obviously moments in it that are really good, but it's just so limited in the variety. I mean, there's like one build for every character in the end game. There's like 2 good items of each type.
Yeah.
Everybody wants kind of the same gear. You have all the same spells. The monsters are spawning is very little variety. I mean, it's really fun. I mean, it's really good. But I just don't think that overall quality can really be compared. I think you're reaching to get on that, Wolfpack.
Well, I'm just going to say the skill trees are such a huge step up over everyone having the exact same spells. It's just not even... I mean, that in and of itself makes the difference for me.
So had either of you guys been following Torchlight 2's development at all?
Yeah.
On and off for me. Just a little bit when you post stuff up on the site, and also when other sites post things about the game, I would check it out to see what it was going on.
Yeah, about once a month I'd do a Google search, Torchlight 2 release date.
Yeah.
And since March I've been doing that about once a month, and then occasionally I'd check out the website, but I don't know. I try not to get too excited for it since it seems like it's going to be delayed.
Yeah, you have to wait to 2012.
Yeah, we got an update on that just this morning from Travis Baldree, actually. You guys will hear what Travis said when I asked him on Tuesday morning, and now this is what Wednesday morning. They posted an update saying, "Hey, guess what?" Sorry, Thursday morning. I guess this is now. I wasn't surprised by that. I mean, you guys heard Travis, and he was very much kind of when it's done, you know.
Well, from just the way he talked about each topic, you got the sense that they were nowhere near done. Kind of working right now. Yeah, we kind of like it all right now, but we're still working on it. Type of answers to almost everything.
Yeah, there weren't a lot of hard, this is in the game, this isn't. He was like, almost nothing does this, almost everything does that. A lot of giving themselves room for if they want to change things, which, that makes sense.
One of the things you really realize when you're there is how small a team it is. I mean, there's like 35 people that work there, but the actual programmers on the game are fewer because they have artists and stuff, all doing other things. But just how quickly they can change things. Like Blizzard, it's like steering the Titanic. It takes it 20 people in a week to turn around in directions with Diablo 3.
How many people did they have for Torchlight 1? The same group?
No, it was like 12 people. It was really small.
Oh, okay.
One of the things that they actually said a couple of times, they had like 2 weeks of money left in the bank when they launched Torchlight 1. I mean, it was really pushed by financial considerations as well. I mean, they were really rushing, and it's like, we have to release this right now or we're going to go out of business. But they just don't have that. They don't have that same financial, demon driving them so repeatedly with Torchlight 2.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're like, we really want to polish this and get it good. It's kind of like what Blizzard said a month or two ago, Like, we could probably make a Christmas release, but it wouldn't be as good, and we'd rather wait another month or two and make sure it's really good. And it's interesting that Torchlight 2, they're really not that concerned about the Diablo 3 release. I mean, everybody assumes that they must be just horrified and, oh my god, when is Diablo 2 coming out? But nobody ever said anything about that while I was there, and they don't really seem that concerned about it. I mean, they could have released it by Christmas. It wouldn't have been as good a game, but maybe they should be, But
yeah, I don't know. Maybe they should be.
If Torchlight doesn't come out before Diablo 3, I'm not going to be buying it.
There you go.
That's my thought on it.
Or maybe 6 months later, you'll want to drop $20 on something new if you're kind of getting tired of D3.
Or if there's a Steam sale, $5.
Exactly. I'm probably in the same boat as Wolfpack. I probably wouldn't buy it until much later, maybe in the summer when there's nothing else going on, and Steam has some sort of summer sale or something like that. Then I'd pick it up.
Yeah.
But you guys aren't really big fans of Diablo 3. I mean, you don't do podcasts about it or anything.
No, of course not.
Not at all.
Yeah. Okay, so you're gonna hear about 7 minutes of Travis now, talking about his intro and how he got into making video games and the learning curve of Torchlight 3, and we're gonna jump in again after that.
I am speaking with Travis Baldree, is that correct?
Yep.
And you are the lead developer, designer, or something?
I'm the lead developer and the president, and do other stuff. Whatever needs to be done.
Get your own coffee?
Get my own coffee.
Ride
the bus to work.
Wrangle the dog? And can you give us a brief intro? How did you get into video game design? Your first game was Fate, I believe? Or
Prior to Fate, I did a lot of smaller games that nobody's ever heard of when I worked at Wild Tangent. Fate was the first game I did that anybody heard about at all. And that was really how I ended up meeting up with Max and Eric and some of the rest of the Diablo crew before I went to work at Flagship.
They just played Fate and got to know you from that, or?
They had played Fate, and I had worked with Phil Schenk, who was the character art director for D2, Schenk the Overseer.
Mm-hmm.
And he was working at Flagship at the time and had worked together with me at Wild Tangent for a year or two. And it was just kind of a fortuitous series of events. They played Fate and liked it and thought that it captured some of the essence of what the Diablo game should have been. And so I ended up working with them.
And Fate was a really small team, yes?
It was very small. So I was the programmer, the designer, the producer, the art director, and I did some of the art. And then I had some outsourcing art that was done, and I could snag a few hours of somebody's time here, there, everywhere to help out. But it was a real skeleton crew project.
And then that turned in, Mythos was kind of a similar thing, design, sort of common design influence, I guess, that ran into Mythos, and that didn't ever quite get finished with Flagship.
Now, Mythos went through various stages, too. Initially, it was just supposed to be kind of a canary in the mine shaft for Hellgate, where it was only ever going to be me, and it was going to be a very small project that was never going to actually make any money. They were just going to put it out as effectively a pre-test for Hellgate's launch to make sure that the networking was solid. And somewhere along the line, we decided that we would try and make it a more full-blown product. So I got the go-ahead to hire some folks and build a real team around it here in Seattle, which is where, honestly, most of the Runic Games staff comes from.
Yeah. And then Torchlight 1 came about. Obviously, like a little bigger team. Can you see like common design themes running through these games? I mean, is there ideas you got in Fate you kind of expanded upon?
I mean, we tried to carry forward some of the things that we particularly liked. I mean, one of the things that we always thought that was really great about Diablo was that it was taking, a style of game that was inaccessible to a lot of people, Net Rogue, and making that something that more people could play. So a lot of our focus was let's try and streamline away things that are tedious or boring. So with Fate, that was the pet. You can send a pet to town, you can sell your expand as loot, you don't have to constantly do town lines to dump that stuff off. We kind of wanted to continue on with that, with the sort of save anywhere, pick up where you left off, just kind of respectful of your time.
Yeah. And as I was put to the transition to Torchlight 2 now, is that still, I mean, Torchlight 2 is such a bigger game in the same project, but you feel it's got the same kind of jump in and out sort of thing?
I mean, our hope is that it's definitely a game that you can jump in and out of and play quickly, and that it's still very respectful of your time. It's not filled with padding and filler and junk that you just have to chew your way through. I think that to a certain, I mean, it's a game geared toward PC game players still. People who play action RPGs before are going to be jumping right in and able to play. Hopefully it's easy for other folks to pick up, but we try and make an effort to do that. But we haven't streamlined away all of the basics of an action RPG game to do it.
Yeah. I got to play a little bit yesterday. I'm hoping to play a little more today, this morning. And as I was writing some stuff last night, kind of writing on notes about it, everything I found myself saying Torchlight, but much more so. It wasn't like wild departures in any way. It just seems like you've had about twice as long to make it, and it's a bigger team, and it's just much more of everything. Does that seem like a fair description to you?
Yeah, I mean, our aim was basically to take everything in Torchlight 1 and attempt to make it better, and then to just add the specific features that we never got a chance to do with the first one. Obviously, multiplayer is the biggest one. Mm-hmm. And being able to actually have outdoor areas and have it feel more like a more interesting and full world. But we're very much making a Torchlight Diablo-style game, and I don't think we're really breaking the mold there. But there aren't that many of those kinds of games in existence, so that feels okay.
Yeah, you're actually much more like Diablo 2 than Diablo 3 is like Diablo 2. It's sort of in most of the game functions. I mean, one thing I noticed about was kind of the noob-friendly learning curve. I asked you yesterday, how do you hate noobs in our other podcast, which is obviously a little, it's a little hyperbolic, but, compared to how you played the Diablo 3 beta and just how it's so training wheels at the start. It really holds your hand and walks you into everything. And in Torchlight 1 and Torchlight 2, it's not like it's difficult to pick up, but, you kind of expect characters to know what they're doing or players to be able to figure out how to play a game.
Yeah. Blizzard is really incredibly good at making games accessible to people who would never have played them before. And I think they're definitely doing that with D3. Our approach with Torchlight 2 is that we want you to be able to just get in and play quickly. One of the things I loved about Diablo 2 is being able to start my character, sprint outside of town, and immediately start wailing on stuff. And that immediacy is something that we wanted to keep. Because ideally we want you to play the game again, and going through that again is not something I necessarily want to do. Go through my kind of long tutorial section each time. That's something I kind of like to skip. That might just be my bias.
Well, obviously you're designing it, you're the lead designer, so it's things that you feel should be in the game. And how the game should be presented to players.
We certainly don't want to scare people away right away. I mean, ideally you get in the game and there's monsters within a few steps and you're beating on them and they're exploding, and hopefully that's satisfying enough and that you're encouraged to keep doing so. Shiny stuff falls out and blood flies everywhere. We really want to get you to that kind of immediate satisfaction of killing stuff quickly and getting a ton of really shiny things. Yeah.
Okay, we're back. You guys just heard Travis talking about the learning curve and the introduction to Torchlight, and Eliminator and Wolfpack have some thoughts on that. You had something, Eliminator, you wanted to say?
They said that they like to toss you in to have you fight, and basically Diablo 3's beta, the first thing you do is walk 10 feet and then kill something. You don't.
Yeah, but what are you killing though?
Yeah, true. I mean, but you're still getting thrown into the action right away.
True. You played the beta Wolfpack. The Diablo 3 beta, I mean. How do you feel about the start of it? Were you kind of wanting to kill more stuff more quickly, or you were enjoying the story? It was carrying you along?
Um, I really wasn't truly enjoying the beta until they let me out onto a field where there were lots of monsters, and then I felt, okay, I'm in Diablo again. Like walking around along that path for, I don't know, 30 seconds, killing one zombie at a time, that was sort of boring. And then the fight at the gate was okay, and then the fight in the inn was okay. But then when you finally are said, okay, go out into the field and explore, I was like, okay, I'm in Diablo again.
Well, if you think about it, in Diablo 2, what do you really fight that mobs you in the first area of Diablo 2? Not until you get into the den, as Jay liked to point it out during the BlizzCon, was they just basically stand there for like 3 seconds or 4 seconds before they turned around and attacked you.
That's right. They're so...
Yeah, but you weren't walking down a bowling alley, though. You were out in a big open area. Of course, that might have been a problem. People could get lost and couldn't find the Den of Evil that easily.
Or they sit around. Sometimes you could start and you could run around for maybe 3 minutes and not find a single creature to kill.
Yeah, I know that Diablo isn't an explorer game, but I like the sense of exploration and the feeling you get when you can choose where you go instead of being narrowly taken along a path.
Yeah, so it's not that different. The sort of Torchlight 2, you start off in a little tiny, very small area, and you're immediately put out into fighting. And you kind of go in this little, like, kind of green, grassy valley with lots of monsters along the sides of this road, and, like, burning wagons and stuff like that. But you can die in 10 seconds of it. It's not like the zombies at the start of Diablo 3, where they're just meat piñatas or whatever you call them. So, I don't know. I mean, you are very much more quickly into big, crazy monsters coming from all directions running around you very quickly in Torchlight 2. Which, like what you heard Travis say, that's what he wants. That's what he likes.
I mean, that's great. That's great for people that know what they're doing, but I doubt people that have no idea are going to be warm to that idea of, hey, look, either you sink or swim. And if you don't like this game, well, then, hey, you bought it you paid us already, so we don't care.
For only $20. But if you play it on easy, they'll run around, but they'll just kind of stand there and watch you. It's not. I played the first 2 games. Our first game I played the mage character, the Ember Mage, and all 5 of us were in one game, which was just, crazy chaos running everywhere, spells, explosions. And it's kind of hard to get a sense for anything like that, And then the next game I played a single player with the archer character, which was a little more different. I played that on normal difficulty. But then the last game I played on the last morning I was there, I played the berserker, who's kind of like a barbarian type, and I put it on very hard, and it was so fun. It was really reminiscent of Diablo 1 in some ways, where you would just I literally every pack of monsters I would get with more than like 2, I had to back up and kind of string them out, because 2 monsters at a time would kill my ass at level 3. And it was just like, you go up and hit them a bunch, and I'm having to drink like 3 red potions. Like each monster's like 2 red potions of hitting them. But then you get the power up and you start kicking ass, and it was just, I don't know, And then I went and played the monk last night, and it was just kind of boring and too easy. And I was like, I kind of was really thinking it'd be cool if Diablo 3 had a easy, medium, hard right from the start. Just to liven up that early level training wheels stuff.
I think I don't think they'd be able to do 3 difficulties like that, but maybe they could have 2 different starting difficulties, like a casual and like a normal, and you could pick from the start whether you wanted to be either way, and that would give you at least a decent challenge for the first playthrough.
You guys probably saw the news item I posted like yesterday or the day before, kind of the casual versus accessible thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, so what do you guys think? I mean, you're pretty expert at Diablo 2 and other such games. Are you going to be happy in Diablo 3 knowing that normal difficulty is going to be like 6 hours of pretty much easiness? Would you like to be challenged on your first playthrough, or are you cool with waiting until Nightmare?
I'm totally fine with waiting until Nightmare.
And so am I, because I really know that it's going to not take very long for you to get out of normal once you speed through it, once you've gotten used to that. And it'd be good. It's good to give you that little bit of time to really understand each skill and maybe even each rune to each skill.
Yeah, I mean, so the first playthrough maybe you'll take 6 hours in normal, but then you've seen what happened in the beta, right? I think it's been beaten in 17 minutes now. Once people learn what to do, they outfit their characters with tons of bonus XP, and they're just so they don't get underleveled, and they're just flying through. I think people will have it down to an hour or two to get to level 30 in Nightmare. But I mean, we'll see. But I really don't mind that 30-minute stretch for every time you want to create a new character, especially since like we've seen with the whole respec at any time. We're not going to be making dozens and dozens and dozens of characters. You'll probably have a couple of each, and that'll be it. So you won't have to play through normal more than 10 times, I guess, if that's our account limit.
That's our limit of a characters per account is 10. So
yeah, so I mean, after
you won't get
that,
to make dozens of characters, like it or not.
well, I mean,
unless you completely delete the character and start over.
right,
or just buy lots of copies.
Yeah,
that's true.
Put that little red gleam in Bobby's eyes. So you guys are not vexed by the whole concept in D3. I mean, obviously it's being made casual friendly to some extent. More inviting, easier to learn.
Yeah, I mean, the more people that play and keep playing, the better it is for the game as a whole. The bigger the community, the better. The more, what's the word I'm looking for? The more
money.
Yeah. Well, just trading is always better when you have more people. When games start dying and people start leaving, the trade game is the first thing to go. And so that I hope that having a very simple, very easy, normal difficulty results in a bigger community playing in Nightmare, in Hell, in Inferno.
So it doesn't sound like either of you guys are really looking forward to being super easy at the start. You're just kind of willing to tolerate that for, it won't last that long and it'll get more people in the game, etc.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Would you admit it if you were? You're like, yeah, I'm scared. I'm not very good at games. I need it to be easy at the start. No, of course you wouldn't. Okay.
No way.
Okay, you're going to hear Travis now talking about stat points, the charge mechanic, and skill trees, and we're going to come in and talk a little bit after that.
A couple of the ways that you are more like Diablo 2 in style, you still have stat points and you still have skill points. Right. As opposed to just auto stats in Diablo 3 and one skill point. Can you give us a brief description of why you think, what's the benefit of having stat points as opposed to the automatic assigning in some games do?
I mean, everybody has there's always the problem that we're all worried that people will dead end themselves with stat point investment, that they'll create a kind of character that's broken for them.
They get to level 10 and they realize they should
put
those
straight
points
in Magic or whatever. But I think that for a choice to be rewarding, I mean, there has to be some chance for it to be not as rewarding.
It's a dangerous thought with video games.
Yeah, sometimes things should occasionally go wrong. And I think that one of the reasons that works so well in D2 is because it's such a fast game. I mean, you don't spend months building a character. It's something that you can click through really relatively quickly. So if you make a mistake, you can try again. We want people to make alternate characters that have a unique flavor and that they think of as a unique character that had a set of decisions that resulted in this character. I like having an identity for those characters, and it's not something that we want to stay away from. Because the loot game is so fast-paced and you're so constantly throwing away the loot that you get, that we never really felt that the loot fully defined the character. We have attempted in the stat system to make the dead ends less perilous. If you spend your points, we tried to give each of the stats more utility for every class or every kind of class or every kind of character that you might make. And hopefully we've succeeded with that, but we do like you to make choices.
And the same thing with the skill points.
Correct.
You can have 1 point, the skills go up to what, 10, 15, it depends on the skill?
I think right now they're 15.
All of them are 15, or is it very small?
All of them are currently 15. That could be subject to change, depends on how many item affixes we allow to modify skills.
And the year skill trees, I didn't notice any prerequisites in them.
There are currently no prerequisites. We support them and we can do them.
I mean, there's character level requirements, but there's no skills that depend on other skills.
Yeah, we have tried to keep people from choosing skills they don't want in order to get other skills.
And there's no synergies either.
There's no explicit synergies. There are skills that play off of one another, especially now that we have a charge mechanic, in that this skill provides benefits to another skill being used in conjunction, but no synergies as they existed in D2.
Yeah, because kind of the thing with synergies you get is where if you want skill X, you got to max out skill Y and skill Z, otherwise your build is useless.
That's almost kind of off-putting for a lot of people. It serves a purpose, but we're trying to avoid it if we can.
The other benefit that seems to me from skill points and stat points is you can do a lot more character customization. Yeah, I mean, for hardcore, you can put vitality, or you can make like a battle mage and put more strength and stuff. You have skills, it looks like, that kind of support that. Or like one skill tree is a little bit different than the other two.
Yeah, we've tried to give each of the skill trees some sort of identity that's geared toward a specific style of play. I mean, there's certain skills that will still be useful from one to the other, but we might have for the berserker trees that are really focused on regaining health quickly and doing a lot of fast damage and being able to recover quickly in combat. And for things like the mage, it'll be very different styles of skills from AoE to ranged. At the end of the day, though, yeah, we want your character to just feel like a specific character. This is my strength build where I went on this tree and played this specific way, and I really enjoyed it, and I want to try something with a very different flavor.
Do you have skills that are obvious upgrades? I mean, is it like, the firebolt to fireball to fire massive explosion meteor kind of thing?
Within the same skill, as you put
No,
points in.
different skills.
We usually don't have skills that are just like bigger and better versions of a previous skill. We want all the skills to feel unique in and of themselves. We would rather have a skill get visually and physically more potent as you put skill points into it. So if we have a fireball skill, we'd rather have that you put 7 points in, then it becomes, a giant meteor.
So is the theory that like a low-level skill could still be viable in the end game? Does it scale up enough with additional points and character level stuff?
We try to make them viable at least for a long period of time. A lot of our skills incorporate DPS, at least some percentage of DPS. It varies from skill to skill to help them retain viability over a longer period of time without you having to constantly dump points in.
So, but I mean, if you get to level 70, are you going to want a level 5 skill with max, and you're going to just want level 30 or level
Our hope is that you'll actually still have utility for some of those level 1 skills at max.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of the reason that we don't do the kind of upgraded super versions of the skills as separate skills in and of themselves. We want those skills to be, this has a unique function, it's still usable in the end game, and you can make it really potent, and you still want to use it.
Yeah, because you kind of get that in like Diablo II. Of course, they have the prerequisites as well there, but there's so many times you just want to put 1 point here to be able to get to the next skill up.
I mean, one of the inherent problems with these games is that you have a lot of skills, and you want them all to feel very powerful and very useful. And to a certain extent, if you do that and you succeed in making them powerful and useful, a lot of players can just use that skill and have fun using that skill. And I think to a certain extent, we have to kind of come to terms with that in the normal game. Ideally, for people who are more hardcore players when you're playing at higher difficulties, there's more advantage to kind of combining those skills because you're overcoming more difficult threats.
Okay, we're back. You just heard Travis talk about the benefits of stat points and skill points in Torchlight 2. This has obviously been a big issue with Diablo III when they removed manual attributes and skill points. And do you guys recall your reaction?
I wasn't really that upset about it because I knew that the gear itself would be really where your stat augmentation would come from.
Plus you have the talisman and the charms as well. Oh, wait.
Yes, back then we had that. But even after the talisman had been removed, it still seemed like it was fine because the gear itself will be what you customize your stats with.
So skill points, I was actually relieved that they removed them. I was not looking forward to picking 6 out of 100 plus skills and then having to pick 2 of those 6 to actually invest in. So, and then I wasn't sure how they were going to do it, and it concerned me. So removing the skill points was a relief. Stat points, I'm still a little bit disappointed. I really liked in Diablo 2. I know that 99% of the builds were just, enough to wear your gear than max stam or vitality or whatever it was. But, I had a barb that was half strength and half stam, and I had a what's it called, Javazon or Boazon, who was all dex, like glass cannon status. So I liked having the stats distribution, even if it was only like 400. But I think with the gems and the enchanting, even if we aren't getting the talisman right away, we'll still be able to get stats the way we want them. I mean, we've seen right in the beta, people are getting ridiculous amounts of enhanced damage from attack already with crafting. So I'm not too concerned. I'm just a little disappointed that I won't have anything to spend my points on when I level up, or any points to spend when I level up.
Yeah, the one problem when you level up is you don't even really notice that you leveled up in some ways in D3. I mean, you get new skills, but it's like it gives you a little pop-up, it says, you got 2 attack and 2 vitality and 1 of whatever the other ones are or something. But I don't, my eyes, I never look at that. I mean, I've leveled up, many characters in the beta,
Yeah.
and you don't even glance at that. You're like, oh, whatever, I got more of something. And then you don't really notice what they do. I've only really noticed to this point what vitality and attack do, because attack can boost your damage so much.
Yeah.
I mean, there's one crafting recipe that makes shoulders, and it's like level 8 requirement, and it's like 16 to 20 attack and some other stat on those shoulders. And you put those on, and your damage goes up from 46 to 62. I mean, it's like more than your weapon does, just from this new pair of shoulders you put on. So it's hard not to notice that, but you really don't notice, you think back to like Diablo 1 and Diablo 2. I mean, you really knew what your stats were doing in Diablo 2. It's like, I need more blocking, I'm going to start putting points in dexterity, that kind of thing.
What I thought was funny was that video of that barbarian who one-shotted one-shot the Skeleton King with the thrown weapon.
Yeah.
I think it was kind of funny because thrown weapon, that hit did about as much damage as you would do in PvP at the 60th level in the BlizzCon demo.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, but you said you were getting like 6k on the really big crits with
the
Hammer of
crits,
the Ancients.
yeah.
Well, that was a crit hit on the Skeleton King he got, but
yeah.
But still, I mean, that means he was doing 600 normally, and he got 1300 with the crits. So.
Yeah. So and that's level 13 with gear. With the just imagine what it's going to be like for a level 60 character with good gear. You're going to be hitting for like 8,000 points of damage easily.
Doesn't that seem like it's? But then again, you'll have much better defense as well, so that reduces.
It might even the two out, but maybe not that much though.
Yeah, it seems like the PvP would be kind of boring in D3, in game if you're killing people in 2 hits of everything. It's like, well, it's just like whoever gets the first draw wins.
Boring or exciting?
Well, if you're the one getting the hits, it might be exciting.
That's right.
It seems like it would take a lot of the skill out of it. It's like it's like dueling with one shot and you're dead. Most people generally in first person shooters there are headshots, but generally you need a lot of hits to kill somebody.
Someone posted on one of the topics on the front page that that D3 is more akin to now fighting games with the twitch reflexes than it is a strategy game. I forget who it was.
You remind me, one thing that Travis mentioned is that his concern about Diablo 3 was that how much bigger the hitboxes had to be and how much more, basically to deal with the online only, because there's so much more lag is going to always be there. You have to design the game to be accommodating to much higher ping. So you have to make bigger hitboxes and more like margin for error kind of stuff.
Oh, I saw that in the PvP because you would run behind a wall and you would still get killed as you were behind the wall just from your hitbox being so huge.
Yeah, and that was something he mentioned in Torchlight, that because they're making it for LAN and for single player, they can make everything much more precise and like much smaller targeting zones. That kind of thing. So I mean, obviously that's more of a programmer. That's something he notices from his job is making the game. But
that doesn't mean though that the people that are playing online are going to have any better time with it though.
Yeah, you heard it here first. Online play will be horrible.
Because the hitboxes will be so small that if your ping is not that great, you're not going to be hitting stuff.
I mean, true. But I mean, if you're playing on a LAN with your friend, your computers are 2 feet apart. You would probably enjoy the extra precision, or certainly single player. You would, in theory, enjoy it more. I have had a few times in the beta on D3 when I've had a lot of lag, and even over 500, it becomes pretty much unplayable.
Yeah.
Even over 500 milliseconds, So good luck, Australians, right?
Haven't we had some Australians posting saying that beta was good?
Yeah, Azure, our D3 economy guy, had that whole post about how they made some revolutionary change in the way the networking stuff worked. And, I guess it's better than D2, but of course D2 was totally unplayable from Australia online. But you could play D2 offline. That's the whole problem with D3.
Right.
If you have horrible lag, you're just screwed. You really just can't play, or you can play Witch Doctor or something, I guess. So neither of you guys sounds too overwhelmed with excitement over the concept of Torchlight 2 still having stat points and skill points. We've all accepted the Diablo 3 system and their explanations for why they're not doing it.
I think it's kind of funny that once we get to play both games, we may find how antiquated Torchlight 2's system is now compared to D3 in skills. how you have skill points and stuff like that. And the skill trees and stuff. How a lot of people are moving away from skill trees and stuff like that, while Torchlight 2 is going to hang on to it.
I think if there were not skill runes, we would be really unhappy with Diablo
Well, yeah.
3. But I mean, the skill runes add so much variety and there's multiple levels of skill runes. That kind of substitutes for skill points in some ways, I guess.
Yeah, and the other thing is, if in a system where all your skills are right there in the skill tree, you need to limit it somehow. And since there is no more skill tree in Diablo, it makes sense to remove the skill points. But since they're keeping the skill trees there, the skill points are a perfectly reasonable way to keep builds in check, to keep people from and force people to make decisions by the way they spend their points rather than which skill they select to be allowed to use.
I didn't notice. Are there any achievements in Torchlight 2? We will be doing achievements. We haven't put them in yet. They will probably just be Steam achievements. We don't have our own achievement system, but we will almost certainly be doing achievements for Steam. And there's a whole bunch of built-in stat tracking, just like there was in Torchlight 1. Yeah, we actually, I think, track quite a few more stats. We have what we call the kind of jokingly the German stats page, which has the exhaustive detail on exactly what the breakdowns of damages are per weapon equipped, and how many footsteps you've taken, and how many seconds you spent doing this or that or the other. You still have the old school, the interface, I guess, the red bulb, blue bulb, health mana for all the characters. Right. And you found ways that you think it's, because like some games, mana becomes irrelevant to, melee characters or something like that. But, I mean, ideally, most of our melee skills for things like the Berserker are obviously drawing from the mana pool. We decided to stick with a single resource system this time around instead of trying to develop a lot of different resources. But we've tried to combine that with the charge mechanic as kind of our separate resource system. So what is the charge mechanic? Each class has a charge mechanic that's specific to them. So, for instance, the Berserker accrues charge with melee attacks, and once they've maxed out their charge bar, they'll go into kind of an overdrive state where every attack is an instant critical hit, and they have increased movement and attack speed, I believe. And then every strike depletes the bar until it's empty again, and you start over. The Engineer is different. The Engineer builds charge through physical attacks, and they actually have kind of more of a lighted pit version, and then those charges are actually tied in much more closely to their skill systems so that skills get physically more potent, the more charges can be expended when they're cast. So not only do you have kind of a cost for your skill, but then you have a separate mechanic that can increase the potency of skills. And how often will you fill up this charge thing in regular gameplay? It's generally relatively brisk. Part of the function is to encourage you to stay in combat because it'll deplete after you've been inactive for a certain period of time. But I mean, ideally, it's not more than 30 to 40 seconds very often. And then how long will the benefit last? It varies from class to class, and there are actually skills that modify how long it can last, or how fast you accrue charge, or how much is depleted when you use it, or how potent it is. So it can vary pretty widely depending on how you provide your character. I mean, that's the hope. We want it to be really pretty immediately accessible. I can walk around and things explode, but it's fun to play with kind of separate layers of mechanics and try them out in interesting ways. I mean, I think that's part of the real draw of the genre.
Okay, so you guys just heard Travis talk about the charge mechanic and the interface, which includes mana and health bulbs and potions. As we know, there are no more mana potions in Diablo 3. There's pretty much no more mana in Diablo 3, actually. But there are still health potions, though they have big cooldown times and such. What did you think, Wolfpack, about your Diablo 3 beta time? Did you miss potions? Did you like the health orbs? Did you feel different to you than Diablo 2?
I liked that, you had potions there as an emergency. But I really liked that I didn't have to keep track of a belt and managing, upgrading the potions every time I found a more powerful one. And so I'm not going to miss the super potion belt management from Diablo 2 too much. I'm glad that they're not, because I totally buy into what they're saying. Like, how do you balance a game where you can go into battle with 12 full rejuves on your belt and a town portal that'll instantly take you right back to town where you can put 12 more on your belt? So yeah, I'm looking forward to having a more challenging game because of the removal of the potion crutch, I guess.
Of course, we're really hypotheticaling that because you really don't need much of a potion crutch in the beta content, but we're assuming
No,
later in the
no.
game. I was
Yeah.
actually Eliminator was talking about that. We were typing about that before we started this podcast about can they make the end game more difficult because there's not potions, and you seem to think that will work out pretty well, Eliminator.
I do, because even when I was speeding through in the BlizzCon demo, I found myself at times actually really worried that I'd die because of the fact that I didn't have some instant get out of jail free card potion to be swallowed or a town portal to get me out of there. And there were times where I was really low in health and had to run away because due to the fact that I just didn't have the time to sit there and level up my guy and, get all the good gear that I needed to get to be able to really survive.
What class were you, just briefly?
Barbarian as well for
Okay.
that first time. I didn't really have that much of an issue with the Demon Hunter.
Ironically, my only real death problem in the whole beta was with the Demon Hunter before they did the revision of the character. And I got a pack of frozen scavengers right into that first large area, the Weeping Hollow. And they were
Yeah.
so much faster than me, and I didn't have vault. And they were just like jump, and I'm in slow motion because they're frozen, and they're just devouring me. And I think I died 3 times with one character. I had to restart and come back over that bridge out of town.
Oh,
You were
man,
like, you say to yourself, "I'm glad no one was watching this in a live stream."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm mentioning it on a podcast, but there was literally I was like level 4. At that point you leveled up more slowly in the earlier version of before the last patch, and there was just literally one would jump and hit me, and they moved really fast, and I was instantly slow, and they were all bouncing around me, and it was just like, okay, I'm gonna shoot a few of them and do the damage I can, then I'm gonna die and restart. And there was just literally nothing I could do, and that's one of the things they've slowed down and changed in the game since then. For one thing, plus another thing, you're now like level 7 in that area instead of level 4. They've changed the leveling curve in D3 somewhat.
Huh.
But I don't think I'll miss potions much, honestly. I think we were all like what Wolfpack said in D2. Potions were just sort of annoying at some point, and you really only needed full purples, and you had so much life leech anyway.
Yeah,
Will you miss potions in D3 Eliminator?
not at all.
Okay, next topic.
All right.
That makes it easy.
I didn't mind drinking potions in the Torchlight. I mean, I mentioned earlier I was playing a very hard. I played it on very hard difficulty with a brand new untwinked, etc. Berserker, and it was really fun having to take monsters on one at a time. And I literally by like level 9, I had no gold left. I was spending every bit of gold from everything I sold on potions,
Huh.
and having to advance really slowly and
It's
take on
just-
monsters like one at a time. And it was really fun for an hour. I don't know if I would enjoy that for a month and level 80, but early going it was very interesting, at least for a change, and very very different than you get in Diablo 3, of course.
How long did it take to fill up your health from one health potion? That's what I'm like. He said that they slowly regain.
There's like 4 different levels, and it's like 100 over 3 seconds, 200 over 5 seconds, 300 over 6 seconds, that kind of thing. So you can do more. One thing he didn't mention in that is they have a new feature in Torchlight 2 where you have the Z and the X button are keyed to it, and one is health, one is mana, and it drinks the most appropriate potion of the ones in your inventory. So if you only need like 100 hit points, it'll drink a 100 hit point potion, assuming you have that, instead of hitting the 500 hit point max potion,
Huh.
which
That's
is
a nice little smarter.
yeah, that's a nice little Actually, apparently that's something from the console version. They put that into the console because they need to limit the hotkeys, and then they liked it a lot, so they put it in the game.
See, developing for consoles is a benefit somewhere.
Yeah, there were a few UI things they got from that. And I was supposed to mention the charge mechanic. I forgot to say that. That's a really cool feature in Torchlight 2, and it's kind of like almost like the Fury thing for the Barbarian in D3, is that it fills up a bar slowly with each hit you land. And when you fill, it's like a little slider bar, and when it fills up, I mean, I think you heard Travis say it takes it like 30 or 40 seconds to fill up. It gives you like 10 seconds of total kick-ass mode. And I really noticed it with the Berserker. Basically, every hit you land in that gives you a critical blow. And that was really useful when I was playing it on very hard, because I would get a boss, and I couldn't deal with a boss one-on-one without just gobbling health potions. So what I would do is I'd kind of find the boss, and I'd run around and hit a bunch of regular stuff to get my charge bar filled up. And then I'd race back to the boss really quick when I was getting close to full, and just wail ass on him for like 10 seconds and pretty much kill him with my super powerful critical hits on every shot. and then once it ran out, you had to run away again. And like with a wizard, if with the Ember Mage, when you filled that up, suddenly your spell casting was like twice as fast as usual, and you had basically unlimited mana. So once you filled this thing up, it was just like total turbo mode for 10 seconds, and then you were weak and you had to run for your life afterwards. But it was an interesting change up to the gameplay. Nothing like that in Diablo III exactly.
Well, except for Archon.
Yeah, that's true. To some extent, Archon, and sort of the Demon Hunter one, I guess, as well, makes you really fast.
Yeah, and Wrath of the Berserker.
But you can use those whenever you want to. I mean, obviously cooldowns, depending, but
Yeah.
it was kind of interesting in Torchlight having to kind of vary your, like you would want to hurry up and, like sometimes you would run past monsters if you were almost full because you knew a boss was just ahead and you want to get to the boss when you've got your charge on full power. And if you didn't, you'd almost want to go to some other level and like farm a little bit, find something easier to do. I'm not sure how that would work indeed. You kind of have to play it to really see how it works, and get the sense of it, but it definitely did change up the gameplay briefly.
There was a system somewhat similar in the Dungeon Siege 3 where they had another meter where once it filled, you were able to use one of your abilities souped up.
Yeah.
Or a melee attack even. Just a standard attack.
And one of the other big draws of the genre is items. Obviously, Diablo, that was kind of the whole slot machine of Diablo 2.
Yep.
And the Torchlight one, you guys were talking yesterday, kind of saying item soup a lot, and how it wasn't really refined and balanced the way you would have liked it to have been.
Yeah, it really wasn't. We had...
And that's all Eric Shaper's fault, right?
No, nothing's ever Eric's fault. Eric is awesome. Really get time constrained, honestly. Assets came in really, really close to launch, and we had to get a lot of stuff done, and just very little time overall. As far as Torchlight 2 goes, I think Eric says this is more items than he's done for any game ever. I don't remember what the final count is, but it's pretty huge.
Does that mean item types, or including
item types as well as
unique
unique versions? Yeah. So we have more weapon types than we've had before, too. We introduced new weapon types for this game, so we introduced claw weapons and cannons, and we substantially changed the behaviors of lots of other weapons to hopefully differentiate them more. But just as far as individual items that have been created, they're vastly more than were in Torchlight 1, both on the armor side and the weapon side. And we're spending more time working on uniques and how the effects are apportioned between the items to make them more distinct, and hopefully much more awesome to get. In Torchlight, we had way too many items, and most of them were worthless. And with Torchlight 2, we've tried to reduce the number of items that we've dropped, but to have a greater variety overall that are more unique in and of themselves.
Yeah, that was my next question. The item spam you could have gotten in Torchlight 1.
Yeah, I think it was exhausting for most people. And when you combined it with the fact that so many things had to be identified, it was really tedious.
So, and now things that are below your character level are automatically ID'd. I mean, they're not unique stuff.
Yeah, the identification system is kind of tiered out. All uniques are never identified by default. But then again, a unique is going to at least be interesting and worth identifying. Green items, which is kind of our randomized effect items, are always just identified. They're generally kind of lower tier stuff anyway. And blues are automatically identified if they are of your level or below. So we've tried to still have kind of the fun of finding an item and not knowing what it is and being able to uncover that without making it this drudgery of constantly clicking on scrolls and identifying stuff that is trash just so you can sell it for more money.
Have you expanded the item stuff? It's not, you don't have there's not a whole lot of big crafting system and rune words and stuff. It's really still just sets and uniques and such, but they're just much better and much more targeted.
Yeah, we've tried to make all the items just plain better. We're also trying to make sets actually achievable to assemble. In Torchlight 1, you find one or two set pieces in a playthrough, and I mean, whoever assembled a set in Torchlight 1. Not very many people.
Completists, I guess.
Yeah, really, you had to be really committed. In 2, we're trying to just generally do a lot more sets that are much easier to achieve. And the set items are actually set within kind of like a leveling band, so this set is for level 10 to 15 or whatever. There'll be very specific items that are assigned. And then, ideally, you'll find another set later. There's just a much higher drop rate on set items overall.
And that's themed, I'm assuming, to the level that it's usable at. You're not going to find your level 5 set at level 20.
Yeah, the actual, the set effects and names don't replicate across all the levels. They're very specifically named. We've also talked a lot about having our item combination do something where you'll be able to, if I have set items that are trash for me, I can take, 2 or 3, throw them in the item combiner, and I'll get a new randomized set piece within kind of that level range, so that you have a mechanism to turn garbage set pieces into something you might potentially want.
Just thinking of all those Diablo 2 item runs, and hey, another green breastplate, you know, you get Catherine's Sigil or something 5,000 times from Mephisto in Hell, and it's like, this is good for level 4 character. So you're trying to avoid that eventuality.
We're trying to.
How much is health, is life, and mana leech play into the game?
It's hard for me to say with any real surety until I spend more time in the late game with those effects.
Yeah.
I mean, they're certainly there, and we also have skills that explicitly do that. So, like the Berserker has a leap attack that passes through targets, and every target you strike does a health steal in addition to damage.
Because obviously the Diablo 2 endgame became very much predicated on leech.
Yeah.
And you would just occasionally drink a purple potion, and everything else was just leech.
Yeah. I mean, I would like that not to be the primary mechanic for surviving. Yeah. We still have leech, but I would hope that it doesn't govern.
It's not that important, and not that big.
We generally don't do percentage leeches anymore. We have the ability to do, but we almost never do percentage leeches. We pretty much do them off of flat values to try and hopefully keep them in check. And we're trying not to balance around leech.
And so that, of course, without leech, that means you have potion drinking.
You have potion drinking. We tried to make it a little bit more tactical in 2. You can only use one potion at a time until per type, so you can only use one health potion at a time or one mana potion at a time. The application time for those is at least twice as long as it was in Torchlight 1. So you can legitimately be in a crowd, use a potion, and they can deal damage faster than you can recover it. You can't use a potion until that's completed. We're trying to push a little bit away from the just hammer the health potion button in combat, but without introducing kind of excessively long cooldowns. We can't do anything either.
Okay, you guys just heard 6.5 minutes of Travis talking about item improvements in Torchlight 2. Torchlight 1, I was a little dissatisfied with the items. As Travis said, they were kind of an item soup. Do you guys have recollections of the items in that and how they might be improved upon?
I had hardly any recollection of the items because they weren't worth really talking about.
Yeah, that's pretty much what Travis said.
Yeah, I did not like items. That was probably my number one problem with Torchlight, was the items.
And obviously the items were kind of Diablo 2-esque, but they weren't really distinctive, and the mods weren't really custom crafted to anything so much.
Yeah,
when I asked...
points.
Yeah, go ahead.
They were just points, basically, and they didn't really influence a whole lot, so...
And it doesn't matter if you had a unique or a rare or a set. They were all a jumbled mess. You could find the same set item or unique item 3 times. It would always be different, like completely different.
It was like a giant bowl of bland oatmeal.
If you hear a scream, that's Eric Schaefer somewhere in the San Francisco area. But they freely admitted, Travis said that the items weren't all that great in Torchlight 1. They kind of had to rush it out, and they've done much more crafting of them in Torchlight 2. Something that I thought was interesting, and when I asked for questions about Torchlight, one of the people said that he really loved the items in Diablo 2 V109, where there were lots of mods you could only get on certain uniques. Like he mentioned the Thunder God's belt that had like the lightning absorb, and like nothing else had that in the whole game. So if you wanted to become basically lightning proof, you had to find this one belt, and it could really make a big difference. And there were other items like Dual Leech was really rare at that point, and special kinds of added modifiers. And and in 110 of D2 and the later patches, you got rune words that had every stat in the world on them, so it kind of watered that down. But do you guys like the concept of there's like really rare, there's a really good stat, but only like 2 items in the game have it, as opposed to every cool stat being on every item?
Well, there should be variety. If every item has a chance of getting the exact same stats, I think that's too boring. And I think that's one of the things that Diablo 2 did extremely well is, if you have a unique item, you can sort of expect there's at least one mod that you won't be able to get on a rare or a set or a crafted or a magic. But it may not be as powerful as, say, a rune word. Every single item class felt unique and felt different, and in most cases it was worth pursuing, versus Torchlight 1, where every single item class felt the same. So I think I don't think that every single item should have to answer your question, I don't think every single item should have a chance to have the same stat. I think, like you were saying, there should be some items that can, whether one item is too specific, I'm not sure about that. Maybe a couple, so it's not impossible to hunt that one stat that you really want, but I definitely don't think everything should be able to have every mod.
Yeah, some exclusivity is good, but not completely making it only for one type.
It's interesting so far in Diablo 3 beta that there's absolutely nothing like that at all. Every item, there's no uniques, there's very few rares, and everything you find can have the same stats on everything. I mentioned earlier, I'm not even sure if we were recording at that point, but the best damage item in the Diablo 3 beta is a pair of shoulders right now. There's a crafted shoulders that add like 16 to 20 attack, and that'll add like 20 points of damage, which is much more than a weapon upgrade in most cases. And obviously, this is only level 8 mods and level 12 characters, etc. But we definitely hope there'll be more customization and specialization to items. It sounds like we're all three are interested in that.
Yeah, well, they talked about it kind of at BlizzCon about how you won't even see certain things in the normal mode. It won't be into the later modes where you'll actually see the true development of the items and the everything else.
Yeah, and 3 of the most interesting items, skill runes, legendaries, and set items, aren't even really implemented yet, and you definitely can't get any. There's the Griswold's Edge or whatever, the joke of a legendary that isn't really complete yet.
And it's not even legendary anymore. It's now magical.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, they changed it in the patch.
The fact that it was ever legendary was a bug.
I think they just did that as like an homage. Hey, look.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they've kicked Griswold's name in the mud. So we were talking about, set items, one thing I wanted to mention. I mean, that's always been the challenge in these games. Item sets were a really cool concept in D2, but like you never had the whole set unless it was end game. Or like, you could twink like Siggins or something like that. And we've seen that in Diablo 3, they're making it, they're none available in the beta, but you're going to be able to craft set items to some extent. And it'll be like, the same Siggins armor, and you can get it on like cloth armor or chain armor or plate mail, and obviously the stats, the defense will increase. And that's kind of how they're extending the life of these sets, so you can kind of use the same set for a longer time by changing individual items inside the set. You guys think that's going to work out? I mean, it's obviously hypothetical at this point.
It should be interesting to see if it actually does work out. It sounds like a nice idea, like the idea that they talked about how once you've outgrown a certain set, that you'll be able to take it and throw it into a whatever it was, like a disenchanter or something like that will turn into a new set for something that you could actually use.
Yeah, that's in Torchlight too, you mean?
Yeah, I thought that's what we were talking about.
Yeah, I was saying in Diablo 3 how they're doing it with the crafting.
Oh, yeah, that too.
How much in-game testing have you guys done? And where are you testing out to? Of course, you just said a minute ago you've probably done the late game Model Leech and Life Leech stuff.
We test all the time, and our testers are constantly playing through all of the game, which at this point is kind of assembled end-to-end, but just means lots of polish work through all the acts and a lot of balance and tuning. But right now we're kind of passing through linearly and just making sure that we go through the game step by step. It feels about right. But the kind of testing I'm talking about is probably more kind of dev testing. We're just sitting down, playing with the numbers, playing in the zone, and seeing how things feel.
Kind of like spawn yourself a level 80 character and say, here's where they'll be, and let's see how this goes.
And we do that. To a certain extent, it's only so valuable because your character's the product of so many other decisions with your gear, and having something that feels legitimate. We often have QA, okay, I need you to play me a character to this point and hand it off so that I can see how that feels. I want you to make one in this class, and this class, and then we'll sit down with it and play with it.
That's kind of cruel. Poor QA. It's like he's giving up his child for adoption.
Well, what we ask them to generally try and get them to do is kind of peel off a version as they go. Okay, just copy this one off for now. Once you reach this level tier, we'll set it up so that it can't be saved over, and then we can use it as kind of a legitimate testing.
This is our level 10 Berserker or whatever.
Just use this guy for a while.
Can you briefly describe the planned end game? You're not doing the endless dungeon again.
No, we're not doing the endless dungeon. It really seems like something that doesn't particularly work well in multiplayer. So we have kind of two aspects to the end game. One, we have just New Game Plus, where once you've beaten the game, you can start over and the entire game is going to level up. First time through, you level up 50 levels. You go through the campaign again with your level 50 character. And the other is that we have kind of the concept of a map room at the end of the game where you can basically do a dungeon with friends or by yourself. Some of those will have bosses from previous areas of the game, ideally in a different setting with different monsters and dungeons on the run up. And you can just kind of like a little mini run for specific kinds of gear or whatever you want to do that can be targeted to a specific level range. So if I have some buddies and we want to do some in-game stuff, we all hop in together. I've got a map for a level 55 run on an Act 1 boss, and we just go do that. And then we're done, and then we can do something else.
Will you know what the tile sets and everything are before you enter those dungeons, or just kind of a random thing?
We have talked about letting you know what the tile... We want you to be able to know... We've talked about having tiers of stuff. Some that are kind of guaranteed and rarer, and some that are just kind of a grab bag. Because I think what we want you to do is, apart from just being able to get these drops, we want you to be able to purchase them as well with in-game currency. Just to buy a romantic level 65 dungeon that's going to be guaranteed to have this boss.
Yeah.
So that we can elect to do something.
It's almost like a custom game.
It is kind of like your little custom, it's basically a custom boss run, effectively.
So will you be able to, like, pick the map, say, I love this dungeon, I love this tile set, I love this boss, I want to get them all together?
I don't think we're going to go to the extent where we do like a mix and match where I can checkbox all the things that we like. I mean, you're going to kind of take what you get, but, I mean, we want to make it reasonably easy for you to find something that you want to do, because, you know, casting about for it isn't necessarily terribly enjoyable.
Yeah, if you want that, start making your own mods. You can
pretty
make your
much.
own mods with left-handed skeleton mages with lightning attacks. In this dungeon's tile set with the jungle floor.
And that's true. I mean, once they're there, it's pretty trivial to vary them in some way and just make a specific item and change its rarity or its price or make it guaranteed. And people will be able to do that pretty easily.
Speaking of monsters, can you give us the monster improvements? There's more... I noticed lots of little spawning spots. You kind of had that in Torchlight 1 as well, but it was more noticeable, I thought, here.
Yeah, there's a lot more monsters, and we tried to do more environmentally specific spawns. That monsters that crawl out from the bushes or, break out of,
climb out of tunnels,
climb up,
leap off cliffs.
And leap off cliffs. And our level designers have done a really great job of setting up kind of cool areas where those things can happen. Guys popping out of tents and attacking you. In general, we just have a lot more monsters. I think we have something like 85 to 90 unique monster models, and that's not counting variations. I don't know what the final actual unique monster count is, but it's going to be pretty huge, especially compared to the previous game. And we're expending a lot more time trying to make unique skills for those monsters so that when they're in groups together, where they have more interesting behaviors and more interesting to fight. Especially in Torchlight 1, as we got toward the end of the game, we're just out of time, out of money, and just trying to get the thing done. And so I think there was a real dearth of craftsmanship toward the end levels for the monster encounters.
Yeah, there's sort of lots of, like, demon-y things.
Just like, there's demons, and they shoot lots of spells recycled from other areas, and there's just a bunch of them.
So you're trying to get more sort of monster AI interaction kind of things in Torchlight 2, where you still have, like, shamans and, other ones like summoning and stuff.
Their AIs are really generally pretty simple, because they don't usually survive that long. It's more about setting up an encounter with interesting skills that give you a reason to make a quick tactical decision one way or another. I'm going to single out this monster because he's going to do this thing, and I'm going to prevent it from happening.
What's next? After you finish this, obviously you'll reintroduce yourself to your family.
That's right.
Are you still talking about the Torchlight MMO someday, or?
Right now, we just don't think about it at all. Let's get Torchlight 2 done. Let's get it out. Let's make sure it's good. And we kind of have the expectation that as soon as it's released, we're going to want to spend a little time with it post-release. People are going to ask for stuff. There'll be changes that we decide we want to make. And we want to be responsive in the months after that to make sure that after putting all the time into getting the thing done, we support it properly.
So you're making some patches?
Oh, well, I can't imagine we won't do patches. That's why we got a patch it.
Are you thinking about expansions? Or?
We haven't talked about an expansion per se. Certainly nothing that we would charge for as an expansion. But I think it's highly likely that we'll make some little chunks of stuff that we would just like to release to people for fun to help support the game. The other thing that we kind of have on the docket as soon as we release is that then we immediately go into getting the editor ready for release and getting the tool set out to people, which is a whole other undertaking.
You guys have mentioned how the name Torchlight came out, and Max talked to me about that last year. Well, basically, you had a whole company-wide selection, and you and Max got in a room, and you didn't like any of those, and you just said, hey, how about Torchlight?
Yeah, we just said Torchlight.
You cheated.
We did cheat. We cheated, and we felt bad about it, but it was the right thing.
And where did Runic Games come from?
Games. We had another vote. But that one actually won. The original name of the company was Surprise Truck. I think it was a lyric in a song that Max and Eric liked, so they did the initial paperwork for incorporation, and it got on the document. I still have credit cards that say Surprise Truck. All of our paychecks that still go out to everyone still say surprise truck. And I still get calls at my home asking if surprise trucking can move someone's furniture across the country.
It sounds like a bad moving company.
It does. We actually just got a document today
lunch.
from California that it was from their one of the employment departments where they wanted it was a survey based on their assumption that we were a moving company.
You said surprise.
Surprise.
I guess that would have been the surprise.
Yeah.
You're not actually a truck company at all.
The image I always had was like Optimus Prime, like running through a brick wall like the Kool-Aid Man saying, "Oh yeah."
You violated multiple copyrights there.
I know.
I don't know if I would have gone to
I don't think we could have done that.
I don't think the lawyers would have let that one through. I guess I should actually ask you when's it going to be out?
It's going to be out as soon as it's done, and we're happy with how it's completed.
Well, that's true of every game.
Well,
Ideally, it's true of every game.
We don't have a specific release date. We're just going to get it done as quickly as we possibly can. Shouldn't be that much longer, but tough to pinpoint.
You guys are so vague.
I know, but we haven't even been working on it solid ourselves for like 2 years at this point. And it's a lot bigger game than the original was. So taking a little bit of time to make sure that it's right when it goes out the door is not a luxury we had with the first game, and we have the ability to do that now, and we're going to do it.
If you guys had like a regular takeout service with pizza or something, and they knew who you were, and you called them and said, "Can we get some pizza?" and they said, "We can bring it up when it's done. We can't tell you when though. Pretty soon, whenever it's ready. We don't want to rush the pizza out the door." Would you find a new pizza service then, or?
I might. But yeah. But it's kind of a known quantity.
Yeah, exactly.
I know it's going to take me this long to put down the crust, and this long to put down the sauce, and this long to put on the toppings, and you live 4 blocks away, so you know. And things are never so known. Making something good is hard. It's time consuming.
But you're very close to done. You're closer than you've ever been before.
All the content is in the game at this point, and we're going through the process of making sure that all that content is fun. And it's not a terribly predictable process. Some things you try, discover were catastrophically wrong, and then you go back to the drawing board and you say, "Well, that was a horrible idea for a monster skill. That feels terrible. Let's just do it over."
And if you were making Diablo III, you'd be 3 years from even announcing the title yet. So.
And there we go. Look how fast we are.
It's hard to criticize too much. Okay, Travis, thanks for your time.
Okay, you just heard the last of my interview with Travis Baldree, and thanks to him for that interview. It was an interesting chat with him. One of the things that we've talked about previously on this little podcast here is how the monsters in Torchlight 1 were a little less than ideal in late game. I think one of you guys was saying that was monster soup, sort of.
I didn't really get to see completely end game, so I wouldn't be able to comment.
And how did you feel about the monsters in game in Diablo 2? I mean, we had, we all think of like, the fallen shamans resurrecting and like the fetish, and there's some cool stuff, but kind of in the end game of Diablo 2, I mean, there wasn't a lot of organization or AI, it was just like random bunches of monsters attacking you at once. They weren't like working together.
One thing I did like in Diablo 2 in Hell mode is they totally expanded the areas that every monster could spawn in. So you weren't guaranteed, say when you go to kill Shank the Overseer, you weren't guaranteed to face the same little boss packs on the way to him. You could face some skeleton archers or something else other than just the guys shooting spikes through the ground and the little, I can't even remember any of their names now, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so that's the guest monsters that came in V110. But prior to that, it was exactly the same monsters in every part of Act 5.
Yeah.
Which was boring.
That's
we liked the guest monsters. But even then, guest monsters, that was just random selection, and it was kind of hard to preserve the difficulty level. But I mean, it wasn't like the skeleton archers were working together with the quill fiends or whatever. I think that's something that Diablo 3 has improved a lot upon, at least early going.
I must say, Flux, I'm impressed that you can remember those names.
You know how much Diablo 2 I played?
It's the only game he's played. What are you talking about?
And writing an entire wiki about it like twice was kind of a refresher as well. So
that's true.
But I think that's something that's cool they're doing more of in Diablo 3. And Torchlight 1, it was also that way. It was just sort of like monster soup at the end, and they weren't really related to each other. It was like, hey, here's some demons. They're going to attack you now. But it seems like they're trying to get that in D3 and in Torchlight 2, where the monsters are still kind of in groups and they have a logical function. And, there's archers being supported by, tanks with mages in the back, that kind of stuff. Is anybody not like that?
I don't think there'd be a single person that wouldn't like like a variety.
If you didn't like that, feel free to comment on this podcast. Say, I want stupid random monster soup. and we'll all laugh at you.
I want to just sit there and beat stuff up for 2 hours, 3 hours at a time without thinking.
You play World of Warcraft, right? Oh, sorry. But I'm fine.
Oh,
Oh.
Ooh, low blow. You guys heard the whole Travis interview. How do you feel? Do you feel any differently about Torchlight 2 than you did before you listened to that? I mean, it's probably the most information you've heard about it because you weren't following it super closely.
There are certain things that I liked from it, and certain things that just felt that they weren't really taking the game any further in a more meaningful direction. They'd just be, here's just Torchlight Plus. Something they could have probably done through patches and stuff like that, outside of like all the new content and stuff.
What do you think, Wolfpack?
I'm just really relieved to hear that they're seriously looking at items and improving them, because that was my biggest problem with Torchlight, the original. And that the fact that they're actually, seriously thinking about it, and they're going to be making changes for set items, and they're going to be just trying to keep it from becoming the soup that we are talking about not liking. I'm really glad they're taking a look at that.
I'm really hungry for soup now, personally.
Yeah.
I will say that I'm more interested after hearing the interview than I was before the interview, though.
Well, that's progress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I will talk more about Torchlight in my report I'm writing, but it was definitely more fun playing it, and it's hard to really say. Like, I keep wanting to have like clever insights instead of just saying it's like Torchlight 1 but much more and much better. But it's like Torchlight 1 but it's much more and much better. So they did mention, Travis said they're going to have a small beta test, which will be cool. Hopefully we'll have some keys to give away on the website.
That'd be pretty interesting. I would like to see some of the things that we didn't talk about, like the loot selling.
The loot selling was just the same as in TL1. You can just right click it to your, or shift left click to your pet, and it runs off to town with your loot, and comes back in a minute or so.
I'm surprised they didn't just go one step further and just do the instant sale right there.
Yeah, the cauldron of Torchlight.
Yeah.
There's new pets, by the way, too. There's like a little dinosaur pet. He's very cute.
Oh, awesome.
They have 6 pets, and there's a ferret, and there's a hawk that flies. The funny thing we had in our testing is they had one of we had headphones on all of our machines, and they put one up regular so people in the room could kind of hear the sound. And that guy had this hawk pet, and like every 5 seconds there was this shrill, like sort of the Colbert Report, that sound effect of a hawk they play, or an eagle or whatever.
Yeah.
Kind of like that, but like every 5 seconds for like an hour.
Oh God.
And they were writing on the whiteboard, turn down the hawk sound effect. That's like
I think a lot of people complained about that in the Xbox version with that little dinosaur, the lizard dinosaur that they had for Xbox.
Yeah.
That it would make some sort of loud shrill, and it would be really annoying because it would do it every like 5 seconds, like the hawk apparently.
Yeah, I mentioned how quickly they were making changes. They had a big whiteboard in the room we were playing in. They were just writing stuff on there just madly. And one of the things Travis wrote was like, I was asked, is there a healer in town? I came back to town with really low hit points. And they go, no, you just drink a potion. I'm like, well, there should be a healer. And he goes, how about we just make you heal full health in town when you arrive? I'm like, that's a good idea. So he writes on the board. And he put that in the next day.
Well, so it's so nice for town portal jumpers to just jump back to town, heal up, and jump right back into the battle.
Yeah, like they were saying, should we put healing on an NPC? And it's like, well, why bother? You'll just run to the NPC and do it. Let's just take out why make you waste 10 seconds running across town? We'll just make you heal them automatically. So they did it.
I think there's a reason why you would want them to run across town, because it would be a punishment to running back to town constantly to get healed with town portal.
Yeah, possibly, but they're not really trying to police how you play the game as much. I think they just want you to be able to have fun.
Well, obviously, because
that's
they're going to just give you, they're just going to give you all the modding tools, so you can just do whatever the heck you want with the game.
True.
If
we didn't mention the modding, but yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that was actually something I was going to say. They were talking about how the game is going to be harder to respec, but anyone can just make a respec mod that lets you respec at any time. So
exactly. I don't understand that philosophy.
Yeah, I don't understand it at all.
Yeah, apparently the most popular mods people were mentioning for Torchlight 1 was like, they were basically ones that fix things like that, like, infinite health potions, infinite item crafting, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So people basically wanted mods that let them cheat at solitaire, essentially.
Yeah.
I asked Travis when they could put the game up for sale. Like Diablo 3, if they finish it, it's like 2 months later before they can sell it, because they've got to do all the translations and everything, finalize it and worldwide release and all that shit. And Travis goes, "It'll be on Steam that night."
Was that him joking, or was that
No,
him
he was serious.
though?
He said it will be on Steam that night when it's finished. As soon as we're done with it and happy with it, maybe they'll wait a day to, put out, new press release or something like that. But there's zero, there's no turnaround time. When it goes gold, it's on sale, so they don't have to spend.
Well, I think it'd be wise of them to not just, it's done, it's on sale. It would be wise for them to do a little bit of at least PR work and saying, hey, look, it's coming out, next Tuesday or something like that. So have your money ready, or hold on to your money or something like that. Then hey, it's out.
Yeah, I think maybe the business manager will have a word with Travis about this.
Yeah.
He is. Okay, guys, we've gone on a little longer than planned. I'll probably cut a little bit of this out. But any last thoughts on Torchlight 2? Or you're just like, yeah, we'll see how it goes?
That sounds about right.
Okay, thanks to Eliminator and Wolfpack for your wise words of inspiration.
No problem.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be back on the podcast again after a long break.
I agree.
Weren't you guys on this like 2 weeks ago talking about BlizzCon?
Maybe.
Actually, it's been longer than that. It's been like 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Time flies. I got to come back on the vodka. Okay, you've been listening to the Diablo Podcast. We are online at diablopodcast.com. Bye.
Bye.
Moo.
That's the show with our special director's commentary on the Travis Baldree interview. If you would like to hear just him and not the additional Diablo 3 discussion, and why would you ever want that, you can get that file on the news post on diablopodcast.com, and we will also be posting the Matt Uelmen special bonus track from the Torchlight 2 soundtrack. Also, that will be available just by itself, and in the meantime, you can listen to it right now. It's the last 7 minutes of the show, and thanks for listening, and we will see you back hopefully next week when I'll be posting an interview I did with Max Schaefer from Runic Games and talking a lot about Diablo 2 and Diablo 3 stuff from the old days, as well as current stuff about Torchlight and other nifty topics. Thanks for listening.